and welcome to Both Sides Book Club. You're with Debbie
and Catie. And as per usual, we are very excited to be sitting here on the Both Sides Book Club couch, chatting to you about books. So this week we are discussing Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson. It is our first book for March, and it was a great one. I mean, we always do great books.
I'm glad you liked it.
Mum chose this book as it is a little bit quirky, but quirky in a very endearing and charming way. So the book is basically opens with a friendship between two friends at boarding school, Madison and Lillian. They're very unlikely friends and have a very interesting friendship. And they sort of lose touch with each other for a series of about 10 or so years. One day out of the blue, Lillian gets a letter from Madison asking her to come and work for her. Lillian's thinking, what on earth is this job going to be? As she arrives at this beautiful estate that Madison lives in, she is asked to look after Madison's two stepchildren, who are twins. Now, these twins are not your usual sweet little children.
They may be sweet.
They may be sweet, but they're not usually your very normal kids.
They have a rather unusual attribute.
They all of a sudden self-combust into flames. Now, before you look at me and roll your eyes and think this book is not for me, let me just try and encourage you to look past that, if you can, and understand that perhaps the flames are not all that meets the eye.
I mean, I think, it sounds completely absurd, doesn't it? You know,
it does.
It sounds a completely absurd premise.
I mean, when you told me that this is what you wanted to do for book club, I was going, I don't know about this.
It sounds like it's going to be fantasy, but in reality, as you start to read the book, and the children burst into flames, and by the way, they actually don't. They aren't hurt from this. Anybody who's standing near them, can get burnt, or their clothes get burnt, but they themselves are not harmed at all by the flames. But as you read it and you accept that this is what happens, then I found that I completely accepted it. It went, it's their emotions, we've all seen a toddler have a tantrum, have a meltdown. And for me, it was kind of like the manifestation of this. I just thought it was fantastic that they literally burst into flames whenever they're upset or angry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I felt the same way. It's funny because I'm not a very supernatural reader. I don't like fantasy. It doesn't tick my box. I know many of you going, oh my God, really? Come on, fantasy is awesome. Not for me, folks. So when Mum sort of told me that they burst into flames, I was going, I don't know. Like, are you sure this is going to be, is it going to be a bit weird? And Mum's completely right. It's not. It's you just accept it as part of their. It's like it's like a physical way of letting off steam, I guess, because they literally do let off steam.
Yes.
And you kind of just accept it and see past it and go, oh, okay, no, that's just them.
It does, and I think it adds a lot to the charm of the storyline, because as Lillian is taking care of them, then she actually has to think laterally and, well, okay, how can I protect these children from them bursting into flames? So they spend a lot of time in the swimming pool, for example. They go and have a shower whenever they're beginning to feel a little bit hot. Lillian gets another member of the staff to investigate fire retardant gel that firemen use, and all of these kind of like little
to put the clothes in.
Exactly, fire retardant fabrics, so kind of solving the problem that any parent does when they're looking after children, okay, well, this is just what they do.
Yeah.
That's fine. How can we help contain or help the children with this?
Yeah, and the way she looks at it is like with not only the physical, but also, okay, so obviously they burst into flames when they're out of control or they're having an extreme feeling. How can we manage those feelings? How can we teach them how to meditate or do yoga or like teaching kids how to control their emotions, which is kind of 101 on raising a toddler, really.
Yeah. But what actually fascinated me about the novel, I read this quite some time ago. The novel actually was published in the States in 2019, so it's been around for a little while, but hasn't really had that much press in Australia, which is why I thought it would be a great one to introduce you all to. But doing a little bit of research on the author Kevin Wilson, and there's not a huge amount out there. I think he's fairly reclusive. But once you actually get to hear a little bit more about his backstory, you can understand why. So Kevin was only latterly, as an adult, diagnosed with a fairly unusual form of Tourette's syndrome. So any of you that know about Tourette's, often it manifests, or stereotypically it manifests as uncontrollable tics and swearing and not being able to control oneself verbally. But with Kevin, it was actually quite different. As a child, he always had weird feelings. In that he felt a very odd kind of surging of energy through his body that he couldn't control. And as a child, he imagined, or he likened that feeling to being about to burst into flames. A friend of his had a book of unexplained phenomena, and one of those chapters was on spontaneous combustion. So Kevin became obsessed with this idea that he was about to burst into flames at any time. Hence, it's not a great stretch for his characters here. Also, interestingly, as Kevin got a little bit older, as he was a teenager, he, a little bit of an outsider, didn't quite fit in. So he channeled that energy into sort of creating a barrier, a fire around himself as a protection to keep people away. So if you take all of that, then
it's not far-fetched at all.
It's not far-fetched at all.
It's not. Yeah, when Mum was telling me about Kevin, I was going, oh, wow, that actually makes a lot of sense, because when you're reading this book, exactly what we were saying before, you know, the idea of bursting into flames at first sounds so bizarre. But after hearing about Kevin, I feel like you can relate to that. I mean, so we often have these sayings, you know, she was so mad she could self-combust, or, you know, I just needed to let off steam, or whatever. We have these these sayings, idioms that we say. But, you know, I myself feel like sometimes you're like, oh! And, you know, with the added Tourette's syndrome and all the other, you can see it. Can't you? It's actually very tangible. It's not actually. It's a wonder we don't set ourselves alight in a way.
And Kevin has 2 children. So apparently the older of his children also manifests signs and symptoms of Tourette's. So as an author, Kevin's focus with this book has now shifted from physically being that child and expressing what it feels like to being the parent of a child and wondering, well, what can I do to protect this child who might burst into flames at any any stage. And that, I think, is the main focus of the book.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, so obviously we see that shift in Kevin through his character Lillian. And we see Lillian taking on this from going from being she wasn't very self-consumed, but, you know, she was living a young adult's life, you know, not much going on with her, just work and stuff. And now she's been taking on the responsibility of the kids. So you see this, like, this shift as well, which I think probably Kevin went through.
Yeah, but I think with Lillian particularly, we need to, you said she was leading a quiet life, but I think what's important about Lillian is the kind of life that she was leading.
Yeah,
I mean, Lillian has had generally a really rotten life. She's from a single parent family with a mother who is
seemingly just doesn't care about
entirely her. Materially driven and seemingly really doesn't care about Lillian at all. The one chance she has to rise above her circumstances when she wins a scholarship to the boarding school where she meets Madison ends disastrously and she has to leave. So she kind of goes back to live with her mother and just drifts along. When we meet her in the book, she has 2 separate part-time jobs as cashiers in supermarkets. Her only recreation is smoking dope in the attic of her mother's house. So really, she has no self-confidence. She really doesn't believe that she's capable of achieving anything or even really caring about anybody or anything, because she doesn't care about herself. She really is at a low point. So the change that you were talking about comes about, I think, by her realization at some point during the course of the book that, yeah, actually, no, I can do something. I can look after these children. Yeah. When she first meets them, she just goes up.
No way.
Like, no way. I've never looked after a houseplant, let alone two twins who are likely to self-combust.
And there's this interesting thing that Kevin sort of talks about, and he plays with this theory, talking about that, you know, often we think, oh yeah, the strong will look after the weak. But in reality, the strong people don't look after the weak because they're already strong. They've already got their own.
They look after themselves.
They look after themselves. They've had to, at some point, become strong. And therefore, they are the strength that the weak aspired to be like, rather than, unless there is a fulfillment for the strong to look after the weak, like there is a need for them to do that. But often it's not. Often it's actually the weak that actually look after the weak, or the weak that look after the weaker.
Yeah.
And I think you see that with Lillian, don't you? You see that, you know, for example, Madison seems quite strong on the outside, but she's not able to look after these kids. So we have Lillian, who is, as my mum said, kind of battling with identity, battling with who am I? I'm worthless, low self-esteem, not feeling very confident, and having to step up to the plate to become strong, to find strength, to figure out how on earth I'm going to look after 2 children.
Yeah.
Which is a really interesting sort of concept.
Yeah. I love the line when Lillian is playing basketball, teaching the twins how to play basketball, and she has kind of like a eureka moment, and she says words to the effect that, I guess looking after someone is showing them something that you love doing. And obviously for her it's playing basketball, is that she realises that she does have something to teach them. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's the beautiful thing. That's how weak people well, not weak people, but people of how people of weakness become strong. They find their strength. It's a journey to become strong.
Yeah.
Nobody's born strong. I think that's amazing. So I think maybe we've talked a little bit about Lillian, but I mean, Lillian and Madison's relationship is really interesting. It's strange.
Yeah, I mean, I think, when we first meet them, they're roommates at boarding school. It seems like it's going to be a fairly stereotypical, rich girl meets scholarship girl from the wrong side of the tracks.
Rich girl's rebellious.
Yeah, but Madison is actually quite an interesting character. Is that she is super rich, she's beautiful, she's talented, she's intelligent, she seemingly has absolutely everything in life
for her.
Everything in life that she could possibly want, and we know she's ambitious. But she also has her unusual or weird, or she knows that she's actually not mainstream.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah. She has a rebellious side to her.
She has a rebellious side.
She has an underdog to her. She has a little
Yeah, but not even I think in terms of just kind of like underdog. I think she does she just has a slightly unusual slant on things.
Yeah, yep, I agree.
And I think that is portrayed with the way she looks after her 3-year-old boy, who again is Timothy, is slightly odd, but Madison protects him and lets him be what he wants to be, because she knows that she's also slightly odd, even though she fakes it most of the time, so that he can become who he wants to be.
Yeah, exactly. And so the relationship between Madison and Lillian's just it's weird because of that, because Madison's not all that meets the eye. Seemingly she's perfect and seemingly she's got it all together, but she has got these sort of strange elements to her. And Lillian, she's in love with Madison in a way.
Yeah.
She's like wants to be her, but also doesn't want to be her because she's aware of Madison's, quirks as well. So you've got this weird duality. In a way, it kind of reminded me of the relationship between Saskia and Miller from our last book, Shiver.
Yeah.
Of that, like, I'm kind of infatuated by you and in love with you, but also I'm my own person and I need to like understand who I am, but yet I really want everything you have that I don't have. There's like this level of jealousy and obsessiveness in a weird way.
Except Miller obviously was a much stronger person than Lillian is at the beginning of the book.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Certainly she, as Lillian is adrift, Miller was very driven.
Yeah, I agree. But that sort of level of being in love with someone but also jealous of them at the same time. And I just found that really, really fascinating to read about.
Why do you think that they do stay friends for such a long period of time?
I honestly don't know. I was thinking about this actually a lot. I actually was wondering what do they get at? So they basically have very little correspondence to each other since they left school. Other than their pen pals, and they write letters to each other sporadically every now and then. And I was thinking about it, whereas in these letters, Lillian doesn't really say much about what's going on with her life, and it's more so Madison talking about all these glamorous things that she's experiencing. And I was actually toying with this in my own mind too, thinking, what on earth would draw them to write to each other, other than maybe an element of FOMO from both of them, that Lillian feels like she was hard done by circumstance. She doesn't blame Madison for what happened, but still wishes that she was living that life or living vicariously through Madison's letters. And maybe similarly that maybe Madison is trying to live vicariously through Lillian in a way that it's life is simpler. I'm not sure. I couldn't really figure it out.
Yeah, I can't really see that would be a motive for Madison. But maybe Lillian is her sounding board. You know, maybe Lillian in a way is one person who knows her as she is, rather than the persona she puts on for the rest of the world. So maybe Madison actually needs a Lillian's
venting point.
Well, as a venting point, almost I guess like a diary that she can actually share with Lillian, and she probably in a way feeds off Lillian's obvious the fact that Lillian is obviously attracted to her and loves her in whatever shape or form that takes.
Yeah, that is true. Did you find it interesting the way Kevin sort of talks a little bit about social structure and sort of like privilege in?
Oh, very much so. I mean, it's a great. I mean, you can call this book a social satire.
Yeah.
But I think he does it. It's not overt. It's not in your face. But yeah, absolutely. We see how the rich and powerful can do anything they want. They can buy what they want. They can buy who they want. And seemingly the rules really don't apply that much to them.
However, the same story comes back time and time again of you can have all the money in the world, but when reality kicks in, it kicks in. We've got you can't escape everything,
No.
Which we won't give a spoiler because it is a short book, so I don't think we'll spoil this one for you guys. But in the end, the rich do get what was coming for them, which I think is a nice message too. That even though yes, it can be disheartening when the rich and wealthy can kind of get away with a lot of things, but lots of things come out in the wash in the end.
Yeah, I mean, one of the the biggest parts of the book. For me was the concept of family. All of Kevin's books actually are about family life. But again, when I was doing a bit of research on Kevin, he had a really interesting slant on the concept of family. What he said was that, families are strange. They're a really weird thing that basically nobody chooses to be born, but yet they are born and they are in the care of these people, random people, whoever they may be in, under whatever circumstances they may find themselves. And that, as a child, we come to terms with that these are the people that
we came from
and are caring for us, and that we're genetically linked to them. But as we get older, then we begin to see ourselves more apart from them.
Yes.
So that families, in a way, are a very, very kind of like curious construct.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And that
it's a kind of a rabbit hole you can kind of go down, isn't it?
I know.
You can start thinking about it a bit too much, I think, probably.
But the concept of family, therefore, should not just be taken as that kind of like strange biological link. Like a family really can be any group of people who are in a set of circumstances where they care for each other and look out for each other. So therefore, family is a very fluid kind of concept. How do you see that coming over in this book?
I think you see it from lots of different ways. I think you see Lillian finding her family by creating a new family, by having the kids and looking after the kids. You see her become and shift and find her sense of family and purpose. But likewise, you sort of see it in the kids too, don't you? You see it with them chopping and changing from their different scenarios, and you can subtly see just through little lines of dialogue of, oh no, we feel safe here, and oh, but please don't go, and but you'll never leave us. You can start to see their dialogue changes, where they start to see Lillian as their family. You know, it's they were told their dad and their mum were their family. Then it was just their mum that was their family. Then it was their grandpa and grandpa that were their family. But none of it felt right, you know. And you can see this sort of level of maturity changing in quite young children of circumstances. I think, you know, the saying is right in that trauma can often be a catalyst for great change and like for mental development as well, either developing backwards or developing forwards. But with the kids, I think you do see this like mental development forwards of kind of going, okay, we're our own people, we're a team. Quite obviously, Bessie and Roland, they're such cute names, but they're very dinky. But they're you can feel their twin bond, I think. You can feel their centre of family and looking after each other. But you can see this change of going, okay, Lillian's my new family. And that's what I want it to be like, the three of us.
The issue of trust, of developing trust, and surely that has to be the most quintessential part, isn't it? The developing of a relationship based on trust.
Exactly.
And really, the twins, you know, I felt so sorry for them.
Oh, me too. You know, every tantrum they had or things that went pear-shaped in the story, I thought, gosh, rightly so.
I mean,
you guys have just
neglected
been
and
abandoned, tossed around,
told that they're abnormal.
You know, and these kids aren't super young. They're able to listen to conversation and understand that all the adults are talking about them, which I remember being a kid and I hated that stage, you know, when you'd what? I'm not doing that. You know, and you feel sorry for them. You just like, nobody loves these poor kids. Like, they just want to be loved. It's not their fault they burst into flames. Like, you know, they just want somebody to kind of go accept them and go, it's okay. Like, we'll figure it out.
And
can you imagine though? Can you imagine like being told you're a freak? Like, can you imagine like how that would feel?
Yeah, completely.
You know?
Completely. And it's Lillian who begins to make them feel as though they're normal, you know, as they're not some kind of pariahs.
Like the way that doctor scene, the way that they go to the doctors and he kind of says they're a demon or they're, you know, Jesus reincarnated or what. You just go, gosh, these poor kids. Like, they just want to be kids.
Yes.
They just want to be normal.
Yes.
Could you just imagine just your whole life being told you're a freak? I mean, you know, it is kind of freaky what they can do, but they, you know, but they're not freaks.
No, they're not. And I thought it was great how even Lillian's mother becomes part of the new family. I mean, do you think that was too contrived? Or, I mean, for me, it actually it worked. I didn't think it was going to, but for me, the way she warmed to the twins in her own special kind of way, you know, meant that there was some element of reconciliation or understanding between her and Lillian through the force of the twins. Did you feel that, or did you think that that was a little bit too...
I think for me, Lillian and her mum, although you saw that, you know, it seemingly felt like Lillian's mum didn't really care about her very much, but I never really felt like that there was that their relationship was toxic or really, really bad. I just always felt that it was kind of, they had a mutual understanding. Lillian felt this way, that her mum didn't really care about her that much. Her mum probably had her own mutual understanding of how she felt like she would be a mum. So I actually felt like in the book there was a level of civilness between them anyway, that there was this
civility,
of that they kind of accepted, although Lillian kind of longed to have probably a better relationship, she kind of like, it wasn't like a relationship where there was this like immediate pain. It was probably, I felt that it was more like suppressed and bruised internally, but they kind of had this mutual understanding of that, well, that's just the way it is. So when the mum came into it in the end, it was nice to have that sort of reconciliation and them coming together again. But
you didn't feel
I didn't feel like it was a sort of a big sort of moment of reconnection. I just felt like it was more, well, now we have another way to connect. Obviously we don't connect very well, but now perhaps we have another way to connect to each other.
We can combine forces.
And connect to each other in that way. That's how I felt.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, did you like it?
I loved it.
Did you like it? Yeah.
No, I think it's an absolutely terrific book. I love the central premise. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, it was.
I laughed out loud. And such a joyful book.
Yeah, it was.
It
was, and it was really nice to read a sweet little book. Like it just made you feel good. It was a beautiful story, and sometimes books don't need to be big mammoths. Sometimes they just need to be a sweet story of how to remember how to be human and how to love each other.
Yeah.
So
well said.
Thanks. So thanks, Kevin Wilson, you bloody legend. Ripper book. All right, everybody. So it's that time of the episode where we're going to introduce our new book.
So our next book, our second book for March is What Could Be Saved by Lise O'Halloran Schwartz. That's a bit of a mouthful. But,
it is a bit of a mouthful.
So this is a bit of a thicker book.
Well, yes, I can see that.
Yeah. But it's a good one, and I'm sure everyone will be able to read it easily in their 2 weeks. So this is a bit of a family, again, it's a kind of like a family story, but also with a mystery at its heart. The story starts with two sisters, Bea and Laura Preston. They're both middle-aged, and Laura is an artist whose husband has fairly recently died, and she and her sister Bea are estranged. Their mother has dementia and is slowly declining in an aged care home. Suddenly, Laura is contacted by a man who claims to be the younger brother that they both had, who disappeared in Bangkok 40 years ago when the family were living there. As a young child, he disappeared. No sign of him was ever found, and the family had to just eventually move on and move away. But suddenly, the brother is back. Or is he?
Yeah, right. Cliffhanger.
So, and if it is the brother, then what impact is that going to have on
the family?
On all of their lives, 40 years on.
There you go. Oh, juicy one, guys.
Yes.
So, like always, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for reading with us. We love you guys. And we will see you soon.
Happy reading. We hope you enjoyed watching this episode.
If you did, please leave us a comment below. We'll see you soon.